Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Blues Central Postgame on STL Sports Central. I'm Thomas Welch here with Mike Meyer, and we are going to be breaking down the Blues 4-2 loss to the Vegas Golden Knights. Happened once again, rears its ugly head. Philip Broberg gets extended and then gets injured. We'll be talking about that as well. But as always, we want to remind you guys that this postgame show is brought to you by our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Mike, it's getting late here, 11:57 in St. Louis. As the light is leaving the night sky, and the light feels like it's leaving our eyes as we watch the end of this game kind of go to fruition with, Binner gets pulled and immediately the empty netter goes in the back of the net. Oh, who scored it? Oh, sweet. Mark Stone, the guy that injured Philip Broberg all the way back in the first period and that Braden Chen had to drop the gloves with. So it's just more frustrations left and right for the St. Louis Blues team. Feels like they can't catch a break or they catch too many breaks. I mean, it scored a couple goals tonight off of – you want to talk about puck luck. That puck was bouncing all over the place tonight. I don't know if it's something in the cards or what's happening in Vegas with their what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but that stuff's going to be dwelling in my nightmares for a while. But what was your takeaway? Or where do you want to start, I guess, would be a good assessment. Do we want to talk about Broberg? We can get into that a little bit later. Do you just want to give me your knee-jerk reaction to St. Louis Blues, another loss on the night?
Well, I think we can be able to just do a quick little knee-jerk reaction here from this because I definitely want to be able to get into Broberg, but this was just not – listen, I did not anticipate the Blues winning this game. I mean, you're going up against here the Vegas Golden Knights. I don't care if they're performing well here or not here lately. Vegas here coming into tonight, as soon as my app here wants to be able to refresh, they're not the world beaters that they used to end up being, but they are not still – like a terrible team by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, they're leading the Pacific Division 19, 11, and 12.
Mark Stone's been on fire. Eichel's been on fire.
Mitch Marner, Mitch Marner's not setting the world here on fire like in normal Mitch Marner ways, but he's still performing really, really well.
You got Shea Theodore back tonight too, which is obviously beneficial for them because he found the back of the net and an absolute snipe on Binnington. So,
yep, absolutely. Yeah. So, I think at the end of the day, you just didn't have your top performers playing, plain and simple. When you exit the second period, and I think it was like 11 shots on goal, something close here to that.
Ended with 19, but it felt like there was I think they were at 13 when they pulled the goalie. So
yeah, it just
went through the majority of the game with not very many shots, to say the least.
Yeah, my wife saw my head buried. I was sitting on the couch, had my phone open, and just watching the game. And she looked at me like, okay, how badly are they doing? And I told her the number of shots because we were in second intermission. And she goes, wait, you said at the end of the second period?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. It's not great. Again, I didn't really anticipate this win, but it just seems like that there's this continued lack of effort, underperforming. Your top players just aren't being your top players. When Oscar Sundqvist and Alexei Toropchenko are two of your top players here right now, that's saying a lot. And this just cannot be able to continue here as a trend as this team continues to move forward.
Yeah, I think I think people have gotten on him a little bit, and it's fair too because he's arguably, not arguably, I think he is the best player on your team, and Robert Thomas, and people are looking at him to drive the bus in terms of, his line and the offense and all these things. And I do want to say, I want to give him a little bit of grace for tonight's performance, just because he did, last game literally just landed on his head, and I didn't expect to see him back in that game, much less playing this one. And I don't know what's going on with his noggin or if he is injured and playing through it or whatever, but it looked like a pretty nasty spill. And then for Broberg to go down, obviously kind of in a similar manner where he's falling, lands on it looked like his head, but the broadcast was saying his shoulder, which is also not great for a defenseman. So, and I don't know if that was a purposeful slew foot by Mark Stone. But
so did you look at it too terribly much?
Huh?
He did not get his foot on him at all. I watched that multiple times. His foot did not touch Broberg. It was all shoulder and upper body. I mean, somebody had it panned down at his feet, and Stone's feet did not touch Broberg's.
Well, I just saw it like kind of levered behind like the back of his knee. So when he hit him up top, it just looked like he fell over the back of his
Yeah.
leg, which is, obviously not ideal. I don't know if it's purposeful. And Braden Shen said during the intermission, like, he doesn't think he's a dirty player, so I believe him. But like, as Blues fans, the history with Bozak there like doesn't bode well in his favor. So it's just frustrating, especially with a team that is dealing with so many nightmares right now throughout the course of the
Mhm.
season, like throwing injuries on top of it. And then we finally get a moment to be happy and be like, sweet, we locked down our number one defenseman, who, like we said, we'll get into that a little bit later. We finally locked him down to a long-term contract, one that we think will, prevail and look good as the salary cap goes up. And then, oh yeah, well, he's out for the game now. So there's your happiness just stripped right from you.
Yeah, and definitely it's not fun. It's not great. Uh I don't know. I don't want to dwell too terribly much here on it. I think before we get too terribly much here into this here though, I want to be able to make sure that we remind the folks who's backing us, who's supporting us here, not to mention here with the fans, but also our guys here. We've got our guys here. STL Sports Central, Blue Central Postgame here is brought to you by our business banking partners at Home Bank. From business lending to everyday banking, Home Bank has been with us here since day one as a trusted partner. Business isn't just about numbers, guys. It's about relationships. And with Home Bank, those relationships make all of the difference. Home Bank is the team behind our team over at STL Sports Central. Visit myhomebank.bank or call 855-577-2001. Home Bank, member FDIC, more than a bank, they're your business partner. Tommy, let's talk here. Let's talk Philip Broberg. I want to talk
Let's do
about
it.
something happy. I'm tired of talking about losses. We can be able to get into the road trip here in just a quick second here as well. What is your knee-jerk reaction? Now, I mean, not completely, because we've had some time to be able to think here about it. We've had some time to be able to talk about, and think about his injury here, unfortunately. What is your thoughts here on the extension? If, in case you have been missing it, living underneath of a rock, been on a desert island, whatever that it is, Philip Broberg extended 6 years, $48 million, an $8 million AAV. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, we talk a lot about the defense on this post game show because, it's one of the glaring kind of issues of this team right now. And in terms of people blocking shots, being able to drive the offense while also, stay relevant in their own zone. And I think when it comes down to it, like if you're breaking down the time on ice on average throughout the course of the season, like Broberg's logging more minutes than Parayko. So like
Hmm.
obviously Parayko has been our guy since like Stanley Cup, and like he was kind of the perceived like heir to the throne for Alex Pietrangelo. It felt like, along with a couple other guys, like they felt comfortable moving on from Petro because Parayko was there, and they had a contingency plan in Krug and Falk and all these guys right lined up. So for Broberg to kind of step into this role in such a short amount of time with the team, obviously coming over from the Oilers and the offer sheet and all that stuff, like I think he's doing everything right and that you want him to, and that
Yeah.
I'm sure Doug Armstrong perceived to be the benefit of going after a guy like this.
Hmm.
So hopefully it proves him right. But I, the numbers are the numbers, and I think from a long term contract perspective, like as the salary cap rises, like I said, like we're going to be looking at $8 million, a little bit different by the end of this contract. But at the same time, from a short term perspective, like these $8 million contracts are lining up here, right? And you've got Jordan Kyrou, Robert Thomas, Buchnevich, and now you've got Broberg into that fold as well. It's like you got to balance out the ROI here, and I think everyone that's seen Philip Broberg's game for the St. Louis Blues in the Blues note so far can kind of agree that you can see the potential for the ROI to be there for him. So I think I'm less worried about his monetary value because the cap's going to rise and because of the player that I believe he's going to be, which is taking over that number one defenseman spot, even at the young age of 24 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's one other point that I just wanted to add here. I had some people asking me here on Twitter their thoughts on why he potentially didn't sign for 8 years
Mhm.
here, or and he's only signing here for 6. because 6 is going to knock him here into his 31. I believe he was going to be 31. I think it's 30, 31 age range. And so it's going to walk him almost right into unrestricted free agency. He's going to have a chance to be able to get another big contract here at that point. Some things that I looked up here, and it seems like that there's a lot of these, especially defensemen, who are opting to take maybe a couple years less, bet on themselves, and opt to be able to just get, again, like the next big contract. It's going to give the Blues flexibility here if they want to be able to say, okay, is Broberg working out here for us? Is he not? They can be able to choose whether they want to be able to continue on with him. They can continue, at the desired price, as he is going to potentially start, making his way down and start the regression portion here of his career. And then not only that, but the Blues then get the chance to be able to, Broberg then gets the chance to be able to reevaluate. Does he want to be in St. Louis? What does the situation look like here for him, for his family in St. Louis at that point in time? Because if St. Louis is not turning things around, then Broberg and his family and his agent get to say, okay, what makes the best monetary deal here for us? What makes the best career sense here for us? So it's a deal that just works on both sides here, in my opinion. And again, at $8 million, as the salary cap continues to be able to rise, I think that this is just a deal that just works for both parties as just time continues to be able to move forward.
Eggplant emojis in the chat says, does it have a no trade clause? I haven't seen anywhere that it does. I feel like that would be, relevant news that people would be talking about, but I don't know if you've seen anything different, Mike.
I believe that it does. Let me take a
Okay.
quick look. I believe that it does here, though. Keep talking, obviously. But I will be able to take a quick look here while
Okay.
we're doing it.
Yeah, but I think for a guy like Philip Broberg and the role that he's going to mean, like, for this team, I think it's crucial to lock him up as you kind of decide to build around him. And really, I mean, we're talking about Robert Thomas. I know, Mike, we were talking about before, like, we started recording that we kind of noticed that Jordan Kyrou wasn't out on the ice when Jordan Binnington was pulled. And it feels like, your leading scoring, finishing player on your team that you trust the most to put the puck in the back of the net. Like, that's kind of an area where he would thrive. And I know that there's, rumblings and all these insiders talking about, like, oh, all of a sudden, like, Jordan Kyrou is more likely to accept or waive his no trade clause. And, whether that's true or not, it's just interesting that, in that scenario tonight, at least, as he's kind of come back from the injury, he's kind of been struggling with a goal drought there. So Doug Armstrong said it best, like, nobody's safe. Everybody's being evaluated and kind of see what's going on. But from my perspective as a St. Louis Blues fan, like, as this team continues to struggle, like, I'm like, obviously with the $8 million contracts, like, from Doug Armstrong's perspective to the fan, you're being like, these are the guys that we are building around: Pavel Buchnevich, Jordan Kyrou, and Robert Thomas. And now I'm second guessing, like, is there anyone on this team right now that you'd be willing to build around? Like I think Robert Thomas is a great player, and he's by far the best player on our team. But can you build a team around Robert Thomas as, like, your centerpiece? Can you build a team around Jordan Kyrou as your centerpiece? Because, like, let's say you go trade Jordan Kyrou to, like, Toronto, he's going to tear it up. But it's because he doesn't need to be in that role where he's driving the bus for that squad, because they already have the guys there that are capable of doing it. So it's more of like it's like a best supporting actor role where I think he would, like, be dynamite. Or, like, Robert Thomas, kind of the same scenario. But, like, if you sent Robert Thomas over to Toronto and you're like, hey, Austin Matthews is gone, like, you're the guy now, does he thrive there? I have no idea. I think that's the question that I'm asking myself as we get deeper into this kind of, torrential season.
Yeah, I'm sure that he does. I'm sure that he would. Again, like you said, he is not forced to be the complete just 1C. He has the pressure that's lifted off of him. Granted, it's a place like Toronto, here, like in this example. So,
Right.
But to answer the question here beforehand, yes, absolutely. Philip Broberg does have no trade clauses and a modified no trade clause. So, bear with me here. I don't have the ability to be able to obviously throw this up here on the screen. So walk through this here. So it's an $8 million AAV contract. The first 2 years of it does not have a no trade, and it's a base salary. A total salary here of $10 million per season. Starting in 2028, 29, that's when his no trade clause kicks in. that's at 9.25. 29-30, it's 6.75. So it's a drastic drop down. Still a full no trade clause. Then you start hitting here 2030, 2031. That's when his modified no trade clause starts with a kick in. Years 3 and I'm sorry, year 5 is when the modified no trade clause goes into place. That becomes a 20-team modified no trade clause. That's also when his salary continues to drop down here to $6 million. And then the final year here of it, year 6, is a 15-team modified no trade clause. So this is a complete front-loaded contract here for him. Again, the AAV here of $8 million. But that's going to be a hefty amount of money here of $10 million for the first 2 seasons here of this deal. But again, should Broberg for some reason start with the falter, should he, be needing to be moved out, that salary here at the very end of it, 6.75 and $6 million is going to look very, very attractive here for a player like him.
It was cool to hear too that like his comments kind of on the extension about the time that it happened was like as soon as I came to St. Louis, I knew that I wanted to lock up like long term here. Like
Yeah.
that's nice to hear from a state and a city that's constantly feels like it's looked over and like free agency acquisitions and like, oh yeah, like maybe Matthew Tkachuk will come here, and then he goes to Florida with no state tax, and it's like, oh, maybe we have a chance at Mitch Marner. And it's like, yeah, he's going to Vegas to like play slots when he's not playing hockey. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like it's either a coast city or like New York or Chicago, or it's like whatever, dude. But it's nice. It's a nice breath of fresh air for a guy like Broberg to be like, yeah, it's sometimes it's nice to just not deal with like the heat of like a Canadian market or deal with like all the things that come with those big cities and kind of settle down, start a family or, whatever you want to do. So, yeah, it's just a nice breath of fresh air to hear that coming from him. And it felt like the feelings were mutual with Doug Armstrong, where they came to a consensus of a place that both parties were comfortable with. And to your point, I think that number for Doug Armstrong is not 6 years by accident. I think he wouldn't be comfortable with 8 years. Primarily because of like the sample size we're getting from, past 30 of play of guys like, Justin Falk, which obviously Justin Falk's tearing it up this year, but last year was kind of chaotic, and Cam Fowler and, all these guys that are coming through. It's like you're kind of rolling the dice once they get past age 30. And it felt like Doug Armstrong held to that for a while and then started getting away from it. So now it's like, he's like putting his foot down with this Broberg thing. He's like, we're cutting you off at 30. We'll reevaluate then, but it gives you the flexibility and gives us the flexibility too. So I think that's a good scenario for both sides.
Yeah, and I'd love to be able to know on how much that Alexander Steen had an influence here on this.
Yeah.
Again, it could have been Philip Broberg and his side here of things that says, no, guys, we wanted to do 6 years. So it's kind of a take it or leave it. Hopefully that it didn't seem like that it was too much of a deal here for them to say like, okay, well, we'll do 6 years. Like you said, Doug Armstrong has been handing out some of those heavy laden contracts here, especially for the aging veterans. And so to not overly commit here, long-term max contract here for a defenseman who's going to be just, you're getting him through the prime of his career. And then hopefully a guy like Broberg just continues to age like fine wine, and they're going to be able to re-up him and re-up him and re-up him here on maybe some shorter term contracts, but just still be able to pay him handsomely. Time will be able to tell. But I want to chat here as well, because again, we've got nothing but losses, and we continue to talk here about losses. I want to be able to hit here into the road trip. But before I do that, I want to be able to make sure that everybody knows here about DraftKings. In case you guys didn't notice here as well, DraftKings is up and live. You've got NFL playoffs that's going on. Plenty of good stuff that's going on here over at DraftKings. So if you haven't downloaded the app, man, what are you waiting for? Download that app. Start making you some good money. DraftKings Sportsbook is the official betting partner here of the NFL, making every playoff moment feel bigger. DraftKings has your back with early exit protection here, just in case if you're getting a little bit nervous about maybe something's going a little bit wrong here with your bet, and you want to be able to get to bail out here a little bit early, get some
like
early
if you had
exit
Philip
protection.
Broberg anytime goal scorer tonight, and he
Ooh,
would
that
have been
would've been
saved
good.
just because he got hurt in 2 minutes of the game. So that would have been nice.
Yep, absolutely. So again, think about this. Talking about the NFL, the NFL here. If the player is eligible here in your NFL prop bet and it goes down at any point in the first half, you can still get paid here in cash. So be sure to be able to remember here about that, guys.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or call ccbg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois, 21 plus in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, call dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
Okay, Mike, I want to run this by you. I know we talked about it a little bit before we started recording, but obviously the shots for the Blues on the night, not anywhere close to where you wanted it. Ended up with 19. Vegas ended up with 25. But in the hits factor, Blues had 30. Vegas only had 21. Blues won 30 faceoffs to Vegas's 24. Obviously converted on the power play. Somehow it was on a counter rush because Vegas had a scoring opportunity shorthanded. And Blues just whipped it around and got a 2-on-1 going the other way and potted it. So, not the most orthodox way of scoring on the power play, but at this point you'll take it to break the curse. The Blues blocked 17 shots on the night to Vegas's 8. And then takeaways, Blues had 3, Vegas had 7. But giveaways, Blues only had 12 to Vegas's 19. So I'm curious what your thoughts are kind of in between the lines there, because it felt like the Blues kind of dominated the team stats in those regards. Like, how did they end up losing this game 4-2? Like, what happened in between all of that? Because it felt like they came out pretty positive. Obviously, the shots, but they came out pretty positive in most of the other aspects of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think bottom line, you just had your top players show up. When you see a Shea Theodore, you see a Mark Stone, you see a Jack Eichel, like you see all these guys get on the board. That it's just that. Like, it's plain and simple. I'm not looking too terribly deep here into this, other than just looking plain and simply, who are the players who scored here for Vegas? Who are the players who scored here for St. Louis? I see, again, Robert Thomas, sure, he scored. Philip Broberg, he was able to get on the board in the very limited amount of time that he was on the ice. Fantastic. But you did not have your top line players show up and score the goals. You didn't have them hardly put any single shot here on net. So to me, its bottom line is that you just simply got outplayed. Coach, you can't be taking this off of the screening off the table. The team is not lacking in talent. Watch how they just stand around in the ozone. Vegas had nonstop move. So here's my one point here about this. You've had scrutiny here from this team for the last 3 coaches, Berube to Monty, and then Drew Bannister here that's in the middle. All of them continue to talk about a lack of execution, a lack of jump, a lack of following game plan, a lack of. I don't care at this point who's behind the bench. You're just going to continue to have these issues. We've seen time and time here again that these players can perform, but for some reason, they're just choosing not to. Jordan Kyrou now is on a 10-game goalless streak. In that time frame, I believe he's got 2 assists. That cannot continue to happen. It's to me, I don't care who's behind the bench. These players are not performing. Plain and simple, end of day. When you show me that these guys are going to be able to continue to be able to play, then we'll start having that discussion. But right now, these guys are not performing, and to me, this is not a coaching issue. This is simply a lack of heart. It's a lack of pride. It's a lack of playing for the guy who's next to you, and a lack of playing for the crest that's on the front of your jersey. So I'm tired of people saying that it's Monty here at this point.
I will say my one critique of Monty, because I also agree that like the common denominator here is that coaches keep switching out, whether it's Berube or like Monty or whoever's behind the net, like you said. I think the common denominator here is the team that's on the ice. But my critique of Monty is like, I get he's an emotional coach, and I get him like getting fired up, especially towards the referees when they're like, directly pissing him off. And I feel like every coach behind the bench like has those moments where they're just, jawing with the officials. What I'm concerned about is that this team that's playing for him is so like mentally fragile that they see like, a call or a penalty not go their way, and then they see their coach like, lashing out at the official and getting frustrated about it, and then that frustration seeps into them, and that frustration resonates on the ice in the form of like letting two back to back like go back in the back of your net, and you're like, I don't know if maybe that's a stretch or like mental dominoes that's happening, but like I feel like in STL City, like when that happens and people are arguing with the officials and they get, a set piece, run it quickly and get a chance going the other way. It's like you can avoid all of that if you just like, the officials are going to do their job. Sometimes calls go your way and sometimes they don't. But like at the end of the day, like you still have to execute. Like that's your job. And so you can't control like what the official's going to call or how they're going to officiate or how strictly they're going to do it. But what you can control is how you respond to it. And I think that's kind of another department. I mean, there's a million departments, but I think that's a department where the Blues are kind of lacking right now that, I don't want to say that that's Jim Montgomery's fault because he's not the one that's on the ice playing, but I think he could help contribute to that positively if he just, I don't want to say bites his tongue either because you love that fire. Like, I don't even know if a lot of the Blues like show that fire much outside of Bennington, but yeah, I think that's just one thing that I've noticed that I wonder if it's, having an impact on this team or not.
No, and I can be able to agree here with that. But again, at the end of the day, when your top players are not like these guys are paid to score. They're paid to get here on the board. They're paid to be able to be your top line players. And when they're not your top line players, like when you're relying here again on an Alexei Toropchenko, you're relying on a Jimmy Snuggerud here right now, a rookie. And all the other veterans here are just they don't seem like that they're just doing their job. They're going out there here for a twirl. They're taking some faceoffs. Robert Thomas has not been great on the faceoff dot here so far this season. Jordan Kyrou, yeah, like he's not getting the results, but if you look at some of the underlying metrics, like he's just getting snake bitten. Like he's got some really good effort that's going out there. Sometimes it's not always consistent, and that's I wanted to see some more consistency here with him. But these guys just they're not performing. And I don't understand on how you want to be able to just say it's all the coaching staff's problem. It's to me, it's not. Now, again, I would like to be able to see something better here on the penalty kill. I would like to be able to see something better here on the power play. I'd like to be able to see a little bit of different structure, but they keep trying to change things up. They keep blending the lines. They keep trying to be able to do something, and it's just not working. And at some point, again, you have to look at what the ingredients that you're throwing in there. At some point, it's not the way that you're putting these ingredients together. It's just the ingredients. It's just not working. So
yeah, and I think that's the most frustrating thing too. Is like I feel like everyone's looking for a scapegoat and be like, well, it's Jordan Kyrou's fault because he goes invisible when he's not scoring.
He's not scoring.
And I agree with that, but I don't think it's entirely his fault because like also like goaltending has bad nights when Joel Hofer lets in like 4 in the first period or when Jordan Binnington lets in a couple muffins. So like that's struggling too. But then also like you have to do a better job of protecting your goalies and like the defense isn't playing well. And it's not always just the D-men that are playing the defense. Like sometimes the forwards aren't playing well defensively. And it's like from the top down, it just feels like this, like I look across the league and they have these like behind the scenes of like Chicago Blackhawks just had, I think like a rookie goaltender get like his first career shutout in his first start.
Camisso.
And they're just losing their mind, spraying them with water, like all this stuff. And it's like, I don't know that the Blues have had any moments like that, even when guys get called up, score their first career goal. Like, I mean, obviously we don't see everything that happens behind the scenes, but it's just like, it just feels like there's a very stark contrast between like the team chemistry and like the team mentality of these playoff caliber teams, or at least even these teams that are just hopeful of making the playoffs. Right. And like the intensity levels, the way that they talk to each other, and like even the intensity levels on the ice comparative to what we see from the St. Louis Blues. And I don't think the disconnect and the divide between the Blues record and those teams that are hopeful to get in the playoffs is an accident.
Nope, absolutely not. Vibes make all the difference right now. And at this point in time, the Blues need to be able to celebrate the little wins. Even if you are not winning the game, you need to be able to still celebrate Otto Stenberg's first goal. You still need to be able to celebrate a guy's call up. You still need to be able to celebrate, a guy surpassing 100, 200, 300, however many games you need. Like, you need to be able to find some sort of a victory that you can be able to pull out of it, celebrate it, and say, we're going to try and ride this wave. We're going to try to ride this momentum, whatever that it is. You got to be able to find something to be able to rally around. Call up the Cardinals, get a rally squirrel. I don't care what it is. You got to be able to find something here at this point. So I really hate to be able to say it, because there's still a chance. They're not that far out of the wild card. And I know people are going to say, like, statistically speaking, they're not that far out. And
It's
again,
true.
I hate saying that, but again, thank you, Western Conference, that they still stand a chance, statistically speaking. They're
Yeah.
not doing themselves any favors, but there's still a chance.
And the issue with that and the disconnect is, it feels like the process makes it seem like there's no chance, right? It's like you're not
absolutely.
seeing, and that's why it's so frustrating, is because it's like, yes, statistically, like, this team's right in it, but like,
Right.
realistically, it feels like from the fandom standpoint, it's like it's a shell of the team that we saw down the stretch last year. Like, it's a shell of some of the players that we've seen throughout the course of their careers. Like, you almost have to flip this team entirely on its head, like 180 degrees, to get to the point where we're talking about, like, not just them having a chance, but actually being in contention. Because, like, you can always squeak. I mean, not always, but sometimes you can squeak your way into the playoffs. And that one year when we played Colorado in the first round, it's like, yeah, we got swept and dominated in every game. Like, if you're not gonna, come into the playoffs and even make noise, like, from a revenue standpoint, I'm sure it's worth it. But from a fan standpoint, it's like, God, we just got embarrassed by the Colorado Avalanche. So I think that's the disconnect. And I'm sure chat, I can see it. Chat's blowing up right now. Like, holy hell, there's still a chance. Yeah, I get it. It grinds my gears too,
yes.
because anybody that's been watching this game throughout the course of this entire season is like, we've got absolutely no shot. But I don't know. Things move so quickly in the NHL from a trade perspective and from, like, just a team perspective. Like, maybe they go, like, to a restaurant in Philadelphia and have this great team bonding experience, and all of a sudden, like, their season turns around, like, on its head in, one night. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm just saying, like, that's the kind of need that the St. Louis Blues, they need to go out, get, I don't know, hammered at a bar or something, and just completely bond as a unit. And then the next time they step on the ice, like, maybe they slip on a baseball and someone all of a sudden, like, Colt Parayko shoots 200 miles an hour instead of 100. Like, I don't know, something crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, something crazy like that. But they need to have that moment to where the team that we see on the ice the next game, or, if they lose next game, then the game after that, or if they lose both of those games, then the game after that, or whatever it is, right? Like, just looks completely different, or have that aha moment, or the light bulb goes off where it's like, oh, maybe we should, like, fight for each other and not get embarrassed and not get blown out, and, play for the jersey on the front instead of the name on the back, or I don't know, whatever it is that these guys are thinking. Because, like we've said, Mike, like, I think the effort levels and the pride that they're playing with, and the hanging their heads or looking up into the rafters, like Chad is talking about, like, I think all of that is relevant, and it happens
For sure.
in a season where there's so many frustrations and there's so many reasons to be frustrated, including the referees. But the teams that have the most success, the teams that create dynasties, the teams that are at the top of the food chain, the guys like Nathan McKinnon, they overcome all of those frustrations and still ball out and execute. And I think the St. Louis Blues, they're struggling because they don't have many guys that are doing that right now.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think just be able to just put a pin here in this. I think we definitely want to be able to say, listen, the eye test versus, like, what the standings here are saying are two completely different things.
Yeah.
Because the standings are saying that the Blues still have a chance. Absolutely. We're simply saying, yes, there's still a chance here statistically, but what we're looking at, what the fans are looking at, what everybody else here is actually looking and seeing, there's not a chance. Like, without some sort of a substantial change, there's not a chance, despite what the standings here are saying. And trust me here, as each game's going to end up going by, that chance is just going to keep going further and further and further away. And so slowly but surely, the standings are going to match what we're seeing here. So, Thomas, how do you get a Nathan McKinnon? You don't get a Nathan McKinnon.
I mean, you do have to draft him, but, like,
yeah,
sometimes you get lucky in the draft and somebody falls too. And I'm not saying that's, like, a realistic opportunity, and I'm not saying that that's, like, something that the Blues should like bank on, but they have drafted pretty well at like the 20 position. They just haven't, nailed on anybody outside of Tage Thompson, and they traded him for a Stanley Cup. Like, they nailed Tage Thompson, did they not?
Yeah.
Absolutely. He's one of the top scorers in the league. Like, he's a bona fide franchise player for the Buffalo Sabres. It just so happens we had to trade him for Ryan O'Reilly, and Ryan O'Reilly, won the Conn Smythe, won the Selke, and won the St. Louis Blues a Stanley Cup to end the drought. So, like, I get it. I understand that to acquire, you're never going to get those guys in free agency to be like, hey, I know that, like, these coastal cities are pretty cool and they have beaches, and I know that Chicago's like this huge city and megaplex and all that stuff, but we got an arch, bro. So, like, come check it out. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not going to happen.
There's a pretty cool aquarium, I guess.
So drafting them will be the opportunity to get them. It's just, is Doug Armstrong willing to tank to get that pick? I don't think so. Do I think that's the right, scenario for him to navigate? I have no idea. But would I like to see Nathan MacKinnon on the St. Louis Blues or someone like equal to his caliber? Absolutely. That'd be fire. But I just don't know that that's a realistic scenario with Doug Armstrong at the helm. So I don't want to be like, oh, he's going to do it. He's going to do it. And then we draft 12th again and like, end up with another Dalibor Dvorsky, which, jury's still out on him and he's still young and like he's playing right now. And I think he's doing fine for his age, but it's not like he's a world beater. It's like, he's not Macklin Celebrini just tearing it up at like 19 years old or whatever. So,
right.
You got to roll the dice and gamble and see what happens. And, we'll see what happens with this team going forward.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, Tommy, I'm looking here at a 12:33. We're running late here right now here on the show. It's about
bedtime like,
we'll
keep it short. And then we're like, well, you know what? Actually, this is a good point. And then this is a good point too. And
exactly.
Bring this up too. But we got another game coming up on Tuesday against the Hurricanes. So that should be fun. And we'll see if the Blues can kind of turn the result around there. 6:30 start time. So thankfully we'll not be up until 1:00 in the morning. That's always nice. But Mike, if you had to pick, give me like a couple wagers that you might put down, whether it's for the Hurricanes or the Blues or anytime goal scorer, anything like that. If you give me a score prediction and just give me like your one thing that you wish this team would change. Because like you said, I'm not expecting this team to just, come out overnight or flip a 180 and be like, oh my God, it's suddenly it's the Edmonton Oilers and Connor McDavid like stepping on that. It's like, it's tough to fix that process just from a game-to-game basis. But if you had to pick one thing that you would like to see the Blues fix by Tuesday against the Hurricanes, what would it be?
So you mentioned here about the anytime goal scorer. I'm going to have to go with Nick Ehlers. He seems like he always does decently well against St. Louis, regardless of whichever jersey he's going to have on himself. And so I would have to be able to go here with that. One thing I'd like to be able to see them fix, just the process, it just get some good sustained offensive zone time, get whether that's on the whether that's on the power play, 5-on-5, I don't care what it is, just get some good offensive zone pressure, just start putting some shots here on net. For the love of God, I would love to be able to see a game here recently that's going to potentially flirt with getting 40 shots on net. That would be nice. Mm-hmm. It's just see any bit of sign of life offensively. And again, whether you are putting pucks here in the back of the net or you're firing them over and over and over, and like we're just racking up shots on goal. At that point, I don't really care. You're seeing effort. And I think that's the biggest thing here for me.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I'm gonna go with the power play, dude. Just because from a logical perspective, like if you have a man advantage in any sport, like in theory, you should be kind of able to enforce your will against the other team and score a goal. Like that's the whole reason. It's like penalty, the other team does something wrong, and like the penalty that they have to endure is 2 minutes of skating around like chickens with their head cut off, trying to defend an extra man on the ice. So in theory, like the Blues should be performing much better than they have been. And I think they like, it's not like they don't have the firepower, right? Like they have like
for sure
players like, I mean, Buchnevich has been struggling, but like Jordan Kyrou should be licking his chops when he's on the power play. Robert Thomas should be like, this is assist city. Like, if I'm on the power play 3 times, I should get like 3 apples. That would be nice for my plus minus and for my stats. Like,
Parayko's got to get something.
Yeah, Philip Broberg, same thing. Like Parayko, just let it rip, dude. Like I'm sure he's worried about like hitting his teammate or like something like that. But just like if you've got one of the nastiest shots on the team, like slappers, just let it fire. Jake Neighbors has proven to be a force like on special teams before. Like maybe he can do it again or tap back into it as a net front presence. Braden Shen, same thing. Like it's not like you're lacking the players to have success there. It's just that I don't know. I think the way that they move the puck, like Chat was saying earlier, like they're very stagnant. It feels like they're not crisscrossing or moving a lot, and like guys end up with the puck like on the wrong side of their stick to like be shot ready, and it's like I don't know, the formation or the system just seems like it's so like disconnected. And I think if they could figure that out, and like the pucks would just be going in the back of the net left and right, and that would be a nice like aha moment for me as a team to just. Even if they didn't win, it's just like, yeah, we were 4 for 4 on the power play and we lost 5-4. I'd be like, at least you figured out the power play. That's step in the right direction, So.
I'll say this: release the kids. Let Otto Stenberg here do his thing. Give Jimmy Snuggert and Dalibor Dvorsky both sides here of the net. Give them each one-timer shot opportunities. Let Logan Mayu have a chance here on the power play. Just do something like let the kids loose. Just let them go. Let them do their thing. And again, like what's the worst that could happen? You add another loss. Just let them do their thing and just see what happens.
Yeah, and like D Brown said earlier, it's like it's kind of mind-numbing to just keep drafting consistently in the 20s. I agree with that too. So like if you're worried about the perception of you as a GM and like, want to stand on the hill that you'll never tank in a season, being like, hey, we want to see what we have in the young guys and like let the chips fall where they may is kind of not a bad way to be like, let's see how the development of these young players have panned out. Also, if we lose games and our draft position goes up, like, what are you going to do? You know what I'm saying? You're not actually just being like coming out and being like, yeah, we're going to not worry about winning games anymore and just try to get the best pick we can. But you're phrasing it as like, oh, we want to see what we have in the young guys, but will probably lead to more losses. So I think that's kind of a way that you can kind of PRify what Doug Armstrong's saying and protect yourself and, still kind of provide yourself the best opportunity, especially as we transition into this, whole Steam thing, whatever that entails, to give him the best opportunity at success too. So I think that'll be electric. But
yeah, absolutely.
Like we said, we'll be breaking down the Hurricanes and the Blues on Tuesday at 6:30. So we'll be on a little bit later than that, but appreciate Chat for popping it off and always talking about the conversation. And it's not always going to be great news on here. It's not always going to be a win. My God, we've gotten a lot of losses this season, but Philip Broberg extension, far too many, but the Philip Broberg extension, I think is a great conversation to have. So comment below what you guys think of tonight's loss against Vegas, but also really like future of the St. Louis Blues, Philip Broberg. You think he's the number 1 D-man? Are you mad that the Edmonton Oilers let him go? Because I'm sure Oilers fans will be tapping into this one. Or are you excited for what the future of this Blues team looks like, even if you're not excited about the future of this season? Whatever it might be, you guys are the best keeping the show going. We will be here on Tuesday, so make sure you tune in, subscribe, hit that button, all socials, follow us, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, wherever you get content, that's where we're going to be. I've been Thomas Welch. He has been Mike Myers. This has been the Blue Central Postgame on STL Sports Central, and we will see you on Tuesday, hopefully with a win. Peace.